Oh my God. It is Rambling About Cars. I am Christopher Smith. Chris Bruce is across the way.
I am.
We're doing the monthly thing. We haven't had much time to just catch up in between. So
We actually haven't. You've been a very, very busy man.
Oh my
You've
God,
been traveling all over. You've been driving cool cars. How much of that can you talk about? Because I think for the folks out there, we're gonna winging it is not the right word. We're just going to be a lot more conversational this episode because we have a lot of stuff we want to talk about.
We have a game plan. I want to say, well, we had a game plan, and then we were talking before the podcast. It's like, God, do we really care that there's a new Bugatti? Yeah, okay, probably. We'll probably mention that at some point. But yeah, we're going to ramble this time around, and we're happy to have everybody along. We need your help to get the message out to all the ramblers. So, Bruce, why don't you tell everybody where they can follow us at?
We are rambling about cars just about everywhere. We are rambling about cars on YouTube. We're rambling about cars on Facebook. We're rambling about cars on Instagram. We're rambling about cars on Threads. Unfortunately, we are RAC Pod on Twitter. Someone had already taken rambling about cars.
That's fine. And you can always email us ramblingaboutcarspodcast@gmail.com and jump in right now to the YouTube. Jump in right now. Leave us a comment. Say something. We've got some of the old regulars that are jumping in there. Group FBC, Ted Adam Green. We really appreciate you guys coming along on the new venue here. We do have some things.
Yeah, we do have. I'm kind of thinking if we're going to do it as a monthly show, maybe we should try to schedule it out and we should promote it a little bit beforehand and then just do it live, because then some of our buddies can, join us and talk cars with us. And yeah, it might be nice. I think next month we should try to do that. We should try to make it happen.
You want to try to do it next month? Ramblers, do it live with us. Join us on YouTube. Jump into the comments.
Yeah. Like the old days,
This is in your hands. Well, I mean, I guess it's in
our hands.
Our hands, but it's also in your hands.
Yeah. You have to join us. We have to set it up.
Jump into the comments. It'd be just like it was before. We can chat back and forth, bounce some ideas, do some crazy stuff. I'm sort of the driving factor behind going monthly, just because I've been such a busy boy. Bruce, I was telling you just before you clicked record, I was kind of dumb for scheduling as much as I did through June. It started with Memorial weekend that I took a long weekend with my wife, but my dumbass then was like, "Ooh, well, let's make it a work trip too, and we'll write about a car." So I just had an EcoBoost Mustang that I was writing about, and then right after that, I went down to Ohio in a Mazda Miata RF for a classified project that I don't want to talk about right now, but it was taking one Japanese car to look at another Japanese car with a very, very special engine. And then I turned around and I'm doing a series on abandoned racetracks, but this time around it's more about ghost racetracks, because I took a Porsche over to, well, abandoned, everything's growing up and nobody cares. Ghost, they're sort of remembered and they're being used for some purpose. So I visited 3 tracks over in Wisconsin.
Some illegal purpose, or
no. Like one of them, the track has become like a nature sanctuary where the outline of the track still exists, and some of the services are still there, but it's been repurposed as just like a nature center where there's walking, biking paths. One of the other tracks is actually at a ski resort, and the track is still generally there. It's just part of like the driveway and the parking, and then they built a building on one portion of the track. And another one is now, oddly enough, a subdivision.
Okay.
It's like the original course is largely still there. Obviously, it's not the original surface, but the layout is still there. And they just built houses around it. And when you get there, the subdivision is I think the one that really got me the most, because as you're driving through the subdivision, it's like, this sort of feels like a track. but
They're like a hairpin on one section.
there are hairpins, there are S's,
Okay.
and it was just kind of a cool place to be. So I did
Where
that.
was? Can you say where that one was? Because I know some of where you went, but was that also?
Well, I wanna save all the juicy details for when the
All
article
right.
posts, which will hopefully be over at Motor One in a week. I was trying to have it done this week, but I mean it's 7 p.m. on July 3rd as we're recording this, and
We are.
I'm off the rest of the week, so it's not going to be
Good
this
for
week. But
you.
it's been a challenge just pulling all that information together. It's been rewarding too, going to these locations. There's a surreal, I mean, as you would expect, there's sort of the surreal kind of feeling when you're there. But these tracks are at least remembered and used to some degree or another. There are other tracks that I've just researched and found online using a lot of Google Maps stuff. That's how this all started. Where it's like, yeah, nobody knows that thing is even there. It's like it's grown up around, in the forest. There's weeds there, the property's for sale, things of that nature. So these at least have some kind of connection.
Hmm.
And I did all of that in the span of about 3 weeks.
Hmm.
So it
5 weeks? Would you say?
three,
Okay.
3 weeks.
Those long. Okay.
Because yeah, I mean it was Memorial weekend right at the very end of May.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
then it was
Yeah.
a week later. Yeah, it was about a week later. I went to Ohio, then turned around a week later. I went to Wisconsin. And then I just had other household things to do in there. So yeah, I was busy boy. And I tell you what, July for me isn't going to be quite as busy, but I am doing some just some trips down to Detroit for some events, and then just some other stuff that I have to handle here at the house. Personal stuff as you do, and eventually I might have a tour show that starts and idles. I don't know. Um, I took the, I did make some progress since the last podcast. Just got the intake, the cam covers off. Was checking everything out in there. Changed the plugs. Did some new seals. Fixed some oil leaks. I really wanted to inspect just the top end, just to see how bad it is.
Hmm.
Sitting for 4 or 5 years, and it's not terrible. So I'm optimistic. I still got to drain the fuel out of the tank and put a little bit of fresh gas into it, and hopefully I'll get it fired up. Will I do it this weekend? I've given myself several days off, a little tiny vacation, and no, you're shaking your head. No, I'm not going to do it. I have so many other things that I have going on, but right now I have rambling about cars with you, and I've been rambling for several minutes now. Bruce, what's going on in your life, man?
Car wise, so I'm going to the Indy 200 this weekend, which is
Oh,
at Mid
nice.
Ohio. That's where they're going to be debuting the new hybrid powertrain, both Chevrolet and Honda power plants. So I'm going Saturday just for the qualifying, and I think there might be some of the lower level races as well, like Formula Mazda or whatnot, Formula Ford, it's that type of stuff.
Mhm.
But gonna be going with my family, so looking forward to
Nice.
that.
Family time.
Uh,
How far are you from Mid Ohio?
at this point from Columbus, hour 45,
Okay.
hour and a half, hour 45, something like that.
Okay. That's not bad. That's not bad.
It's not bad. It was closer from where we used to live, but it's not too bad. Um, but yeah, so gonna be doing that this weekend. No real car news. My mother-in-law was away on a trip, so I drove her Prius a bunch. I know we mentioned that last time when we were discussing the CVT and whatnot, but drove it a bunch more even after that. Kind of started to get used to it. Still don't think I would actually want one, but you know, is what it is.
I've yet to drive the new Prius, and I really want to.
I do too.
I've driven the older ones, and I know I'm supposed to not like the Prius because I'm an auto journalist who likes fast, fun stuff. But I always, at the very least, I appreciated the Prius. I found it. I got kind of hooked on the whole fuel mileage thing. It's like let's see how high I can actually get this. Just a little bit of the hypermiling thing. I know that's not the cool thing to say, but damn it, I kind of got into it. The styling was never a big hit with me, except the current one. I think Toyota just did a great job with that. And I'm a little nervous that once I drive one, I'll be a little disappointed. I don't know. Meet your heroes, don't meet your heroes. I'm not saying a Prius. Let me clarify that. I'm not saying my hero car is a Prius.
No.
There are some people that do, and that's fine. But I have a lot of expectations built up, and we'll see what happens when I drive it.
So trying to stretch you out here a second because there's someone who I follow on Threads who
Okay.
his name's Bazi Tatarovic. I don't
Oh,
know if
Bazzi,
you've heard
yeah,
of him.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He has a new Prius, but he has been modifying it because apparently a lot of the front suspension parts are shared with the Corolla, which means they're shared with the GR Corolla. And
Okay.
so he's been swapping over GR Corolla parts to his new Prius, and unfortunately I am not finding them on social media as quickly as I want to. But
I'm
yeah.
reminded of the time when this current generation Prius came out, and it got everybody's attention. And there was instantly some talk, at least in our group, um, about, hey, could they do a GR Prius? And it was like, come on, no, they're not going to do that. And then it was like a month later, there was like a GR Prius race car concept or something. And it's like,
Yeah.
whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Toyota's going a little crazy.
Good
A
crazy.
little, yeah, good crazy.
Good.
It's the kind of Toyota that we needed a long time ago.
Yeah. But unfortunately, the automotive industry kind of moves slowly. What do they say? It's like moving the Titanic. Once it starts moving, it keeps moving, and then there's so much inertia to change it back again. It's a whole thing. So we had boring Toyotas for a while, and now we're starting to see exciting Toyotas. Quite a few exciting Toyotas, actually. So yeah.
And to do a little bit of a segue here,
Okay.
the auto industry has certainly been moving at Titanic speed with Titanic weight, perhaps,
Okay.
in a certain direction. And that's meaning by that I'm meaning very, very heavy vehicles
Okay.
that just seem
This one
to.
bothers you way more than it bothers me for some reason, and I don't know why. But you have a bugaboo right now with the new BMW M5. So tell me about it. Tell me what bothers you about it, in case anyone doesn't know, and then let's discuss it.
Well, I mean, since we were on last, yeah, the new M5 came out, and I've seen a lot of people on socials talking about, oh, the styling's ugly, blah blah blah. It's not really that ugly. Is it the prettiest BMW ever? No, not by a long shot. But the whole bloody blah 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 about, oh, it's ugly. Who cares? You know what you should care about? This BMW M5 weighs more than a Ford F-150 4x4 Super Cab or Super Crew, the full four-door cab. It's 5,400 pounds. It's more than the i5, the fully electric 5 Series. BMW, what the crap? I mean, this is a performance sedan. I know, okay, you give it 717 horsepower. I better look at my notes to make sure I've got that number right. I'm pretty sure that's coming off the top of my head. Yeah, 717 horse. Well, let me just give you some stats here. As expected, it's got the XM's powertrain, right? That's the 4.4 liter twin turbo V8 with its hybrid, electric assist. 717 horsepower. That's the full system output. 738 pound-feet of torque. BMW says 0 to 60, 3.4 seconds, top speed of 190 with the optional M drivers package, blah, 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 blah. It has a fully electric range of 25 miles. It costs 120 grand plus destination. All of that just kind of melts away in my head, except the weight. Obviously, they're not bragging about the weight, but when you get into the specs, that's when you discover that, yes, it is 5,390 pounds. More, like I said, than 4x4 F-150, more than the i5, which is all electric. I don't really understand where all the weight comes from. Moreover, I don't understand why they let that occur with what's arguably the benchmark performance sedan in the world. I mean, am I wrong there? The M5. I mean, you talk about sports sedans performance. M5 is largely right there at the top. I mean, you could put
M5
Audi in there.
E63.
Yeah, you could put Mercedes in there, but honestly, I think BMW was doing it proper and better before them.
Yes, they were.
So, I mean, who I want answers, BMW. I want to know what was going on in the room when they were discussing what they're going to do with the M5, and we're going to add this X drive, all wheel drive. Sure, obviously the 8 speed, nifty transmission. Okay, sure. The dynamic suspension settings, blah blah blah. Okay, whatever. Sure. Active differential, little vector power. Okay, whatever. Didn't somebody at some point say, guys, how much is this going to weigh? How much power do we need to give this thing? I mean, 717 horsepower is a lot. And yes, it has an electric range of 25 miles. It's the M5. Are the buyers really interested in an electric only range? And I imagine this is partly due to some places that in the near future will be mandating zero emission vehicles for certain parts of cities. That's the way things are going. It doesn't really bother me that much, but don't drive your M5 into the city. If you're buying a $120,000 M5, you probably have some cash for something smaller, more efficient that you can take in there. I guess what it comes down to for me, BMW M5, they're trying to now make it do too many things. They're trying to give it some green aspect with the electric only range. Maybe they could have made a performance sedan with a mild hybrid system that isn't quite as powerful, but also maybe doesn't weigh 2.5 tons, over 2.5 tons. I'd see. Yeah, I do have a little bit of a bug just because this feels like a failure of imagination to me. This feels like BMW not trying to do better. If this feels like, honestly, it kind of feels like an American approach. I mean, go ahead and send your hate email, rambling about cars podcast at Gmail. Just throw horsepower at it. Nothing else matters. Just throw horsepower. Just throw the horsepower at it. Hey, well, this is a BMW M5. More matters than just the horsepower here. That's a neat number, but it's kind of wasted when you have 5,400 pounds to tote around. Now, will it be amazing on a track? Some of the early drives that I've seen from people say, yeah, it actually does really well. 5,400 pounds. The enemy of power is always weight. I don't care how low you put it. You still have that mass to carry. You still have that mass to change direction. That matters. And this feels like a very poor effort on BMW's part. Fill it with technology, sure. You can give it all the tech you want to make it go around corners in a certain way. It still comes down to be smarter about this. If you don't have all of that weight, you don't have to try to plug in all the technology to make it defy physics. So I'm totally rambling at this point. Bruce, you've got to have an opinion on this, man.
I've got a few opinions. So first off, I want to shout out your colleague Peter Holdereth, who on Motor One he broke down some of the math. So the new M5 weighs 5,390 pounds. And to put that into perspective amongst very different vehicles, a 2022 Chevrolet Tahoe in two-wheel drive form, rear-wheel drive, weighs 5,356 pounds. And a 2023 Mercedes Maybach S-Class weighs 5,346 pounds. So both of those are slightly
considerably
less,
larger.
A lot less.
They're considerably larger and they weigh less.
Yes, correct. Yes. I was going to flip-flop those around, but yes. So
yeah,
you're right. The M5 is massive in terms of its weight. I guess I can't wholly disagree with you. I can say like the usual platitudes. Oh, we haven't driven it yet. Oh, blah 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 blah. But yeah, on paper, you're right. You're absolutely right. Um, I don't know how BMW does this. Well, I don't know how BMW can create a vehicle that handles as well as they want this to, given these figures. But again, and I'm saying this, and I know it's the cliche, we haven't driven it yet. Um, the other part that really surprises me, I guess, is that so yeah, it's a hefty vehicle in general. It also weighs 1,000 pounds more. It's actually a little bit more. It's like 1,030 pounds more than the outgoing model, which is just a huge weight increase. And it follows on what you were saying is that I wonder I would love to like have a recording of the meetings between, the engineering teams and the product teams and the marketing teams and stuff like that and find out how they justified that. Like who was pushing these features and saying that they have to be there, that it was enough to add 1,000 pound to a vehicle's weight over a generation, which is pretty much unheard of in any segment, really.
And I mean, we've got the hybrid powertrain in here. Obviously, that's going to add weight.
It is.
But
But I saw it mentioned Porsche did a hybrid and it added what, 50 pounds, 150 pounds,
yeah,
something like that.
the 911 hybrid adds very little weight over the regular car. We've seen what is it, the Lotus, the all electric Lotus,
Is that the Amira?
their SUV. The name is slipping me right
Oh,
now. Electra.
yes, yes,
I,
yes,
I
yes.
mean, I mean that's I mean
Electre?
that's a fully electric SUV that doesn't weigh this much. And I mean, you can figure out how to build these vehicles and not add a stupid amount of weight. That's what bugs me here more than anything. It feels like BMW just didn't care. It's like they just took the lowest common denominator. Let's throw a bunch of power into it. We'll just throw a bunch of technology into it to make it do really cool things. But at the end of the day, I don't care what kind of technology you have. Tires are still tires. Weight is still weight. There are still physics that you have to take into account. That car would be so much better with 100 less horsepower and 1,000 pounds less weight.
Well, you and I both well, I concede that, and you know that, and we all know that. You also have to know that, this is a business, and at some point in time, this discussion had to have happened. And I wonder how they came to this was the right conclusion, because it's all a matter of opinion, when it comes down to it. It's a matter of wills within some boardroom or some meeting room somewhere. And I just wonder how this was the acceptable option.
I mean, that's an interesting take. That's an interesting and a valid way to look at it. We're talking about a performance car from a performance aspect. How many M5 buyers are really interested in going to a track, are really interested
Zero.
in pushing their car that far? They want
No.
something that's fast, that's comfortable, that when they get to a road that has some twists, maybe they can push a button and put it into a different setting where it handles a little bit tighter, where they can smile and feel good, and then they're just back to business as usual.
Mhm.
That's something we don't know. We don't know what BMW has as far as all of their demographics for buyers and what their buyers are actually looking for. We are taking this, or at least I am, from more of a performance standpoint. But that said, this still feels lazy. This still feels lazy. If I was looking for just a fast, luxurious sports sedan, I would still be throwing up that question. This seems really heavy. Couldn't you do better?
Right.
There are other options out there.
I I wouldn't call it lazy. I would feel this feels confused. This feels like two teams were working in opposite directions, and this is what happened.
My big concern is that this somehow becomes the norm. It's
Yeah.
okay to add 1,000 pounds to, I mean, any vehicle, because we want to pack all of these systems in there. We want to pack all of this tech in there, which is something that we're going to, I think, talk about here in a little bit, um, without trying to find better solutions, without trying to find better packaging. Um, and I mean, like you said, with the 911, we know that hybrid vehicles don't have to weigh, a Titanic, right?
No.
It's it just feels like an easy way out for BMW, and it's disappointing. Even if the car is fantastic to drive, even if it makes you feel like a rock star on back roads, even if it's capable of going to a track day and surprising some people, it's still in the back of my mind. How much better could this be if it weighed a little less? And that's I'm going to end my rant there. Jump into the comments if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. I'm not going to say anything about the styling. That's in the eye of the
Yeah,
beholder.
styling's fine.
I never thought the current 5 Series was bad. It's not the prettiest, but I mean it's better. It's better than the 4. It's better than that really big beaver bucktooth grill that I still hate, and I'll probably hate to my dying day. The interior, it's BMW. It's got the big screen on it. It looks nice enough. It's just too heavy.
Okay. So I know beforehand we decided we aren't going to talk about the Bugatti, but for anyone out there,
we probably should mention it because it's kind of a big deal.
well, okay, fantastic. We can have a little learning corner here because I was not 1,000% sure how to say it. So we can all learn together. I actually already listened to this. I believe it's Tourbillon. Tourbillon. Let's listen.
Okay.
Turn it.
So make sure to stay tuned. More interesting to the channel. This is French for whirlwind, or whirlpool, or vortex if you wish. In French it is said as tourbillon, tourbillon,
Tourbillon.
So in English, tourbillon, tourbillon, or tourbillon, tourbillon. Some say it.
Tourbillon.
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 You will often hear this word talking
often
about
hear.
watches. And now you know.
Dude, this guy's gonna put me to sleep. So tourbillon.
Tourbillon. Yes.
Tourbillon. I'm just gonna call it the tourbillon.
Okay.
Tourbillon, the new Bugatti. This is a big deal, and it's gonna be super expensive
for like 1,000 people, and
they're not even gonna make that many. It's the successor to the Chiron.
Yes.
It's going to be for the 1% of the 1%.
Yes.
And I know it's like, hey, neat, but okay, who cares? I want to point this out though, because it's kind of a work of art. I would argue I would argue the Chiron was neat, but it wasn't necessarily a work of art. I think this falls much closer to just a piece of art that also happens to have 1,800 horsepower with hybrid drive that you can drive around at 276 miles an hour. And also BMW, if you're listening, this hybrid Bugatti with a V16, 3 electric motors weighs less than the Chiron that came before it. So yes, you can package this stuff and not go crazy on weight. So yeah, this is the crux. This is the new hypercar from Bugatti, the Tourbillon, and V16 makes 1,000 horsepower on its own. Completely new engine, revs to 9,500 RPMs. It's got 3 electric motors, an e-axle up front with 2 motors, and then there's a motor integrated further back. And you have, I can't remember the electric only range. It does have electric only power, but when the system is all combined, 1,800 horsepower. It looks a lot like the Chiron.
Yeah.
And when I first saw it, it was like, is this just another, like Coach built Chiron that they're doing something different? No, it's a completely new car from the ground up. It also, Bruce,
Mhm.
it's very analog, isn't it?
It is.
This is
Well,
where
that's
I get into the art portion of the podcast here. I'm not a watch guy,
yes.
but the interior, the gauge
Right.
cluster, it's a mechanical gauge cluster that was designed and constructed by Swiss watchmakers. You look around in the interior, I think the interior is just stunning and gorgeous. There is a touch screen that's hidden in the console that will only pop up obviously when you activate it. Otherwise, the two-seat interior, it has a very analog feel to it. And front and center, just that gorgeous mechanical gauge cluster with your tachometer, your speedometer, not digital. I mean, you can see the gears that are in there. I think it's just a fantastic piece of art. When the car debuted, Bugatti, they said they wanted something that was timeless, and I have to agree with them there. When you look back, maybe 50 years from now, um, I think the whole touchscreen revolution is going to get dated in a hurry. You're going to see that, and it's just going to look like, wow, that's just a certain vehicle from a certain period. Whether it holds up well over time, we'll see. This, I have to agree with Bugatti. I think it's a timeless look. A very, it's not. I almost said simple. It's a very
It's not
elegant.
simple at all.
It's not simple at all. It's just beautiful mechanics in action. But it's very elegant, and I think it looks great.
It's difficult to see in the image that we have pulled up here, but you can see the instrument cluster. But the most notable thing is that it has a combined speedometer and tachometer. So
Mhm.
you see there is a blue needle there on the inner side and a silver needle on the outer end. The blue needle is the tachometer, the silver needle is the speedometer. So you get both of those instruments directly in front of you, is the idea. And this is not the first car to do this, but it does it in a spectacular way, I would say.
Right. Yeah, I think that along with the V16 that they built with this, with some help from Cosworth. So okay, Cosworth, they know a thing about high revving engines. Um, it's a fantastic car all around. The exterior looks good. The interior looks well.
Better.
I'm gonna borrow Bugatti's terminology, timeless to me.
Okay.
And I think this is going to be one of those cars that in 50 years is still just going to look modern and unique. They're only going to build 250, whether that's actually 250 or like 250 of these plus another 25 super sport. We don't know. We don't know. But 250 is the planned production run. That's not going to begin until 2026. They're $4 million. I'm not going to buy one.
No, neither
And
will
I doubt anybody listening. If you are listening and you do have an order placed for one of these cars, let me know. I would love to take it for a drive. But I felt like we needed to mention this at least briefly, because I think this is one of those rare vehicles that legitimately earns the title of something being very artistic in addition to being a functional vehicle.
Yeah. And it's, this is the first Bugatti to come out since Remats has owned them.
Yep.
And clearly they have a very good eye for detail, which we know from Remats's own vehicles like the Navara and whatnot. But clearly they didn't skimp when it came to Bugatti either. It got the same attention as the company's own vehicles.
Yeah. And I mean, 1,800 horsepower. Oof.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's not the only bit of art that we're going to talk about here, because Bruce, you
we're
wrote
talking about my art.
You wrote something that was just fantastic.
Well, this is more.
And I'm really jealous. I read it. You need to tell us all about it, man.
Okay. This is me patting myself on the back, and also this is me patting Haggerty on the back. So I did a freelance story for them, and it came out so much better than I ever could have imagined. So I'm going to show it to you folks now. I'm going to give you some stuff that I didn't get to put into the story just for space reasons and things like that. But yeah, so I've been doing some freelancing for Haggerty. This was the second story I did for them. I've got one more in the can and one that just got accepted today. So you'll see me there even more in the future. But this one specifically was about the video game from 1988 called Chase H.Q. And it is essentially, if anyone's ever played Outrun out there from Sega, and that's from 84, 85, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
That is, that's you and this blonde, and you're driving a convertible Ferrari Testarossa and stuff. This is kind of a take on that, but through the lens of Miami Vice, and they clearly know it's through the lens of Miami Vice for reasons we'll see here in a second. But the way Haggerty's presented it, like the fact that they got this really cool gif of the beginning of the game, and I love the fact, so the first guy that you take on is in this white Lotus Esprit, and I want to get his name right. I believe he is the Idaho Slasher. Hold on, let me double check.
The names are great.
He is Ralph the Idaho Slasher. Ralph, apparently he's got the cash for an Esprit, despite also, I guess, being a serial killer,
and you chase him down. But I just want to point out, I didn't remember this game until I was like halfway through the story that you wrote. And then I was like, I think I remember playing this probably a couple times back in the day.
So
it's very much about the kind of the buddy cop genre.
Yes. This game was very popular in Europe, it turned out. So it was developed in Japan, but it turned out to be very popular in Europe. I'll quickly read through the various systems and computers and stuff it was on. So it was on the Commodore Amiga, the Amstrad CPC. Obviously, it was in the arcade, the Atari ST, the Commodore 64, the FM Towns. There was a Game Boy version. There was a Game Gear version, the MSX computer, the NES, the Sega Master System, the Sharp X68000, the TurboGrafx 16, and the ZX Spectrum. So it got ported all over. So this was not an unpopular game, clearly.
And I'm sure if you jump online, you can probably find an emulator somewhere that's going to play the game.
Some various version. But one of the things that I really liked about this story was also just getting to show the art that went with it. Like this, if you're watching on YouTube, this poster that we're seeing right now, and it's so very Miami Vice inspired. You've got the guy in the white sport jacket with a pastel shirt holding a gun. Like, it's just, they don't hide it at all. And then the other poster is also fantastic because they're clearly ripping off the Lethal Weapon poster.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it was just a super fun story to write. And Smith, I have to show you. So this game did spawn 2 sequels. So the first game is Chase HQ. The second game is Special Criminal Investigation. So we're not just chasing them now, we're investigating. The third game is Super Chase Criminal Termination. So no more investigations, no more chasing. We're terminating now. And so, Smith, I want to show you just a brief bit of Super Termination here. Let me find you.
Well, and I mean, while you're doing that, I also like just the car selection.
Yeah,
these weren't generic cars. I mean, there was a Porsche 928 in there, I think.
So you play as a Porsche 928, yeah. Yep. The first car is a Lotus Esprit. There's a Lamborghini Countach. There's a 935, 930 Porsche. But yeah, you can just a brief bit here and just see that it kind of evolved into this first person thing. And I think that's super fun too. But yeah,
It was, yeah. I mean, like I said, I didn't remember the game until I got about halfway through, and then I was like, "Wait a minute, okay, I kind of remember this." And it was like pre Need for Speed, where you started to get games that tried to take on a more realistic flavor. Right. But the car design here, I mean, it's like, hey, I'm driving this Porsche. It's not like I'm just driving a car. It's like I'm driving this Porsche. You kind of had that connection. Just a great story all around. And it made me super nostalgic for some of these older games too.
Yeah. So super fun story to write. I'm really proud of how it came out. I'm really proud of how it looks. And
yeah,
no,
outstanding stuff. Ramblers, I mean, talk to us about some of your favorite racing games. Shoot us an email, drop it in the comments. We're going to talk more about games because Bruce and I are big gamers, especially when it comes to the car scene. By the way, Bruce, that reminds me, did you see the updates that dropped for Forza Horizon 5?
Which ones?
The most recent, the Universal Car Pack, where now you can. I had to purchase it. I haven't touched Horizon 5 in probably months, and then I saw this release pop up. You get the Jeep from Jurassic Park.
Okay.
You get all 3 flavors of the DeLorean from Back to the Future. The first movie, the second movie with Mr. Fusion, the third movie with the big ass white walls.
Okay. So do you get Ecto 1 is I'm guessing?
And you get Kit.
Okay. All right.
I mean they already had the DeLorean in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, they already had the Trans Am in the game. You just couldn't get the various stylistic changes to make them look the part.
Sure.
And actually they plugged in some sounds too. When you're driving around Kit, I mean, you can still do engine swaps and all that. So you get the V8 sound, but it also has this kind of weird kind of whistle like
that's cool.
It used to have. So I mean, just complete 80s nerd stuff. I saw that. I was like, okay, I got to get that. So I downloaded the pack like shortly after it came out. And it was just, I want to say it was like a week and a half ago.
Okay. Yeah. I missed that.
I've been trying to play Forza Motorsport. And I keep trying to warm up to it. And every time I drive it, I mean, that's supposed to be the more realistic. It's still not a hardcore sim by any means, but it's supposed to be more realistic. But just their damage system is so frustrating. I don't know how many times I'll be in a race. It's like I'll get hit from behind and I get the penalty because apparently I cut over in front of them. It's like, that's racing.
How recently have you played? So this is not me judging you at all. It's just, so my dad plays Forza Motorsport like 3 nights a week and races online. And he says it has gotten better. So when was the last time you played?
It's probably been, well, if it feels like a couple weeks, it's probably been a month.
Okay. All right.
I mean, they got rid of the whole, you have to race each car and earn the points before you can get certain upgrades,
right?
Which it's neat to some degree, but it was also frustrating. It's like, okay, I have to drive this car so many laps before I can put on just some better tires, which in real life, the first thing you would do is put on better tires before going to a track. That's what you do.
Sure.
I mean, unlocking like some of the bigger mods, sure, but I've learned since the game came out, it's just the development process didn't go very smoothly for Microsoft on that. They had a lot of contractors that would come in for a certain amount of time, do the work, and then when the contract was up, it's like, well, I mean, I can keep going. Nope, your contract is up. Out. We'll bring in the next person.
Yeah.
So the next person would come in and be like, okay, where are we at in this game? after
Which is
somebody
actually
else just spent 6 months, investing
so
all of this
odd,
into
though,
it.
because Turn 10 is a pretty dedicated team. Like Playground Games that does the Horizon games, they are split now between doing Horizon and the next Fable game. So I could see that. But Turn 10, it feels like you would just have a solid team in place and just have them keep doing it. Almost
Well,
like
I
they
mean,
do with Madden, like where those guys, they have like 2 Madden teams and they just kind of go back and forth.
yeah, I mean, when it launched, I mean, I played it when it launched, and it was all right, but it was also frustrating just
Right.
with
When it
some of the
launched, it was much
progression.
more of a mess. Yeah.
And yeah, it just had a very incomplete feel. Even graphics wise, I still feel like there are some cars where it's like, guys, the proportions just aren't right at all.
Well, did you see where they upgraded a bunch of those actually? Not all of them, but some of them dated back to Forza Motorsport like 2, and they
Yeah.
updated like half a dozen cars, like the most popular ones, in a recent update. So
Yeah, I mean that's why I say I keep trying to warm up to it. Maybe I'll give it another row here while I'm off for a few days. I'll see what it's like. But what I did do was jump back into Assetto Corsa Competizione, which has
oh,
been out
really?
for years.
Forever and a day. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it came out first for PC, and then it
PC.
was ported over to console, and the port was just terrible. I remember reviewing that several years ago, and I was just like, guys, this is like borderline unplayable. It's frustrating. I went ahead and pulled that out of the archives to give it another try, and it's much, much better. So I've just to get my race on, I've just been sitting on Assetto Corsa Competizione.
Okay.
The physics feel great, the handling feels great, it looks great. So that's kind of where I'm at in the gaming world. That was a little bit of a tangent, wasn't it?
It's fine. I will add to the quick gaming tangent for just a second and just say that Fortnite, and I just returned to Fortnite after months away, like 2-3 nights ago, and they've added car modifications now where you can put like a gun on your car, or like bulletproof tires, or a snow plow, various things like that. And so
Snowplow? What?
yeah, and
Okay.
so then you can just like run through buildings, especially if you're in their Mercedes G-Class copy. You just kind of it's but yeah, it adds another element to the game, so it's interesting.
I've never played Fortnite, I have to confess.
That's fine. I would not call myself a dedicated fan or anything, but since it's free, if I want to play a third-person shooter against other human beings, I'll load up around. And yeah, like I said, I hadn't played it for about a month before that, so
sure.
yeah.
Well,
do you are cranky about automotive tech?
Isn't everybody?
Not really.
Come on, Bruce. You don't think there's too much tech in cars? That's something that I wanted to discuss here a little bit.
I've got a bit of a theory about this, and tell me if I'm wrong.
Go ahead.
Is that a lot of, not entirely at all, but a lot of the complaints that we read, they come from automotive journalists, and they get a press car for a week at a time, and a week, even if you drive it every day, is not long enough to learn, memorize, get accustomed to where everything is in a vehicle. And I think a lot of that causes a lot of the complaints about automotive tech that we see.
Well, I would argue that you should be able to learn where everything is in that amount of time. The fact that there is so much there that it's taking at least that long, I think, is a sign that, yeah, you know what, there's just too much tech, there's too much crap, there's too much bloat in modern automobiles. And it's not just necessarily like a software thing. I mean, I've been driving more vehicles now, and
you have been.
And I mean, the layout, it's not just, I guess, the tech per se, but it's also how it's presented. If you're going to have a lot of features in a vehicle, you need to make sure the most important ones are very clear and easy to suss out. And I'm finding a lot of times, if it's not buried in a screen, it's a small button somewhere amid several other buttons that, yeah, you know what, you'll get used to it over time. But it can still be very, very distracting even once you're used to it. But that's sort of another tangent. Um, I'm thinking of the M5 that we talked about earlier.
Mhm.
Are there ways to reduce just a lot of this complexity, and thus get some of the weight out of these vehicles? I mean, for example, a lot of luxury vehicles. Do you really need a power operated telescoping steering wheel? I
Why
mean, do
not
you
on an S class?
because
I
that
think it depends on what class of vehicle you're talking about and what the
because I
purpose
mean
of the
that
vehicle
electric
is.
that electric motor is going to add weight, right?
Yes,
The little
absolutely.
electric motors, it's going to add weight. The switches, it's going to add weight. Why can't you just have a very simple manually operated? I mean, we're talking about a steering wheel. It's right in front of you. It's you're still pushing a button per se to operate the wheel. Why don't you just push that button and then manually move the wheel exactly where you want it? It's quicker. It's going to save weight. It's going to save complexity. It doesn't make sense to me. Massaging seats. I know massaging seats are big for a lot of people. I guess on like the ultra luxury stuff where you might have a driver up front and you're sitting in the back, sure, you know what, that's fine. But I'm seeing these features coming into more mainstream vehicles, and I mean that's certainly going to add a lot of weight. And for the passenger, maybe it's nice, but for me as the driver, it's just distracting if I'm trying to use it. And I'm sorry, this is my vehicle. It's not a hotel. I'm not just going to go out for no reason whatsoever and sit in the driver's seat and just push the button. And
But
then
that's the purpose.
we'll
Now
flip
you're
on the
being
touch
unfair.
screen. Well, but no, but that's kind of the way it's going, right? You've got your vehicles with your 4K and your 8K displays with snazzy welcome screens that pop. It's just like, this is a car, man. Sure, have your navigation, your CarPlay, phone feature, things that are truly functional that can make your life easier. Do I need a display that can pop up little flowers if I put on the turn signal? Do I need to have 100 different shades of color to customize my mood lighting? When I get into my BMW M5, do I need several different drive modes and then an individualization mode
Oh,
where I no
drive.
hold no hold on.
BMW's been doing that for years.
Yeah, and it's a bunch of crap. I want BMW to build the car that I want to drive. I want their engineers to put their expertise, because I'm not an engineer. I want their engineers to put the expertise into the systems and then present me the vehicle that they think is going to be the best. Now you get in and you can choose what 4 or 5 different drive modes. That's fine. That's fine. But then you can choose how you want your steering to feel. You can choose how you want the transmission to shift. You can choose several different settings for the suspension. You can choose several different settings for traction.
This is not a BMW only thing, though. I know for a
Right.
fact you drove a Porsche recently, and it probably had many of those similar options.
Right. And I tried some of them, and I didn't really give a rip about any of it.
Okay.
You don't need to have 50 different customizations for steering wheels, steering feel, suspension feel. It's just I feel like it's not so much about giving buyers something more to work with.
Sure.
I feel like it's more, hey, look at what we can do. Sort of like what was happening with the whole automatic transmission things. If you've noticed, some manufacturers got up to 10 speeds for their automatics.
Yes.
And it seemed like it was just going up and up and up and up, and it's just like ridiculous.
We kind of hit 10
six,
and plateaued,
six,
though.
6 speeds, 7 speeds in just a regular transmission. That's fine. That's plenty. Anything else
Well,
like okay, the Mustang that I drove, the EcoBoost. That's it. That was a 10-speed automatic.
right.
When you're driving that thing around, it sounds like what? How did I describe it? Um, Now it did have the upgraded exhaust, so it made a little bit more noise. But just driving around regular operation, it sounded like a tuba connected to a CVT. Just because the transmission was just constantly. It's like, do I need gears that only have 300 or 400 RPMs between them? No.
But you and
It's
I both
just
know they're
a
doing that for emissions and fuel economy. Is that
no. I think they're doing it just to say they have more.
I disagree completely.
Okay. Okay. Then explain to me, how does that work for emissions?
Because the more gears that you have, if you can basically get into the rev range exactly where it's running most efficiently, then you can improve both fuel economy and emissions.
So that's what a CVT does. So why not just use a CVT?
Because they have reliability issues, as seen by Nissan predominantly and other automakers as well.
Yeah, the CVTs have gotten a lot better. I think it's just the public perception of my car should not sound like it just holds 1 RPM. And really, that's a failure of the buyer, not the failure of the automaker, right?
They have gotten better, but that's also the advantage of a CVT, is that it maintains the most. You can tune it to maintain the most efficient rev range for the engine in terms of either economy or power or somewhere in between. And that's the same reason that you're seeing, more and more gears. It's why, would you rather have a car with a 3-speed manual or a 4-speed manual? Probably a 4-speed, because it's going to be that much more controllable to put it into the rev range where you want it to be.
Well, and we're talking, 3 speeds, 4 speeds, 5 speeds. I can drive a car and have a useful point for each gear.
Yes.
Right? Versus a 10-speed where, okay, I can be in this gear or this gear or this gear. I could be in 3rd or 4th or 5th or 6th at this given time, and it's not really going to make that much of a difference. That's where the redundancy comes in at, to me. That's where it seems more about how many gears you can have versus making it particularly useful. But it accelerates quicker. Yeah, but it's shifting constantly. Is it really accelerating that much quicker? You're getting better fuel economy. Are you really getting that much better fuel economy? How much weight are you adding by having 10 gears in here versus 6 or 7? It comes back to the whole BMW M5 being too heavy, and it's not just the M5 that's too heavy. Weight has just gone up, and it's made me question, do we need all of this stuff that's available in modern cars? And I know I sound old. I'm actually growing more gray hair as I say this. And I'm not anti-tech by any means. Having CarPlay, Android Auto, having the navigation features, functional voice control, heads-up displays, driver assists. I am pro driver assist, 100%. Do we need 12 cameras? I'm not sure about that.
Some drivers do.
A good forward camera, good reverse
camera. Nice to have.
Oh, they're very nice to have.
Is it a necessity? No, but
they're helpful. But when you're driving down the road, no, you shouldn't look over to your touch screen and have to think, okay, it's a little warm here. I just want to turn down the temperature. Where is that at again? Is that in the touch screen? Is that one of these buttons that's over here right next to the screen? So is it one of those buttons? And you'll learn that over time, but
you will.
It shouldn't be something that takes much thought.
So getting down to brass tacks, and the vehicles that you've driven recently, since you've been having press vehicles, have any of them shown? Have any of them either been especially good or especially bad about their layout from what you've seen?
Uh, I was in a Toyota Sequoia that
Okay.
I thought it just had a very smart layout,
Mhm.
large touchscreen, and I will say, um, I think the larger touch screens do better. If you have a small touch screen, the smaller the screen, the smaller the script, the smaller the writing, the harder you have to focus on it. Bigger the
I
screen,
think that's fair.
it's very easy to just kind of glance over, boop boop boop, whatever you need to do. Um, it was a very intuitive layout.
Okay.
I'm in a RAM right now that isn't quite as intuitive. It also has a big screen, but it has climate controls mixed with seat controls. There
Is
isn't
this
like
the
a
big portrait style
yeah
screen one? Okay.
yeah there isn't like a very clear grouping. Okay, all of your climate stuff is here,
Okay.
and your other driver settings are here. It's all kind of jumbled up. For example, I can control the temperature on one side of the screen, but then the blower is on the other side, and it might be reversed. The blower might be on one side, and the temperature might be. The point is, why wouldn't you just have them together? And it just doesn't feel quite as intuitive. And until you learn that, you're looking down away from the road, and it's just it makes me question. Okay, how much is just too much? Are we at information overload? It's not just about the software per se, but it's also how you present it.
Mhm.
And it's also, it's also, like I said, about the hardware too. Do I need a motor in my steering column to adjust the steering wheel? No. How much weight would that save on a vehicle? Not much. But when you plug that in with massaging seats, with um, power actuated headrests, with power actuated hatches and gates, and it all adds up. And do you need it? Are we at a point where there's
I don't
information
think
overload?
I think you're conflating a few things. I think,
Oh, I'm sure I am.
features like the seats and the rear power rear hatch and stuff like that, I think are far different from things that could potentially distract someone, like the infotainment stuff, or
Oh,
just kind of
like
the
the
display and UI
like
options.
games and everything plugged into the displays.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I
that's for the kids. But come on, are the kids
Right.
climbing into the car to play games? No, they're playing games in the house on their phone. They're playing
Or
games on
in
their
the car on
tablet.
their phone. Yeah.
Yeah, they're playing games. Yeah, so why plug all this bloatware and
Sure.
just make the system more confusing?
Yep.
And
I
do
know
you
we're
need suspension that has 20 different adjustable settings? It's not just about software on the screen. It's about all of these things. And I feel like it's just overload.
Mhm. Um, I know we got to finish up here, but from what you were talking about, it did make me think of one thing, and it's that I'm surprised we haven't seen more unification in terms of UI in cars. Of basically, y- I I started thinking back to the 80s where kind of there was DOS, there was, later in the 80s there was Windows, and there was whatever the Mac OS was called at the time. And that was kind of sort of it. There were a few others out there that, obviously there was Commodore and some stuff like that, but in terms of the business world, it was the IBM compatible stuff and the Apple compatible stuff. And so it kind of forced everyone to unify over these certain parameters. And I'm kind of surprised given that, Toyota is such a massive automaker. General Motors is such a massive automaker. Like the really big automakers, what they've done hasn't forced everyone else to go in a similar direction, in terms of UI, in terms of layout, in terms of stuff like that. But instead, everyone has gone their own way, and everyone thinks they know the right way to do things. And some automakers are getting it very, very wrong, like you were just saying. So
Well,
yeah.
and I think the future here lies with your smartphone, your
Mhm.
Android, your Apple. how your phone integrates with your car. In my opinion, automakers should let the software go to the software people. Build your car. That's what you're good at. That's what you know. Build the car. Let the software people, the software groups, in this case Google, in this case Apple, let them design the interfaces, and then you make your system compatible with theirs. That brings uniformity that you're talking about, Bruce, right? That brings
Sure.
in uniformity, and it also brings in a built-in level of familiarity right off the bat. Sure, the individual vehicles will have different style touch screens, but once you connect your phone, everything that you're used to is right there. You know how it works. Ideally, you have a good voice control system that works. Um,
Oh, that's even
voice,
harder.
voice,
Now we're really
voice.
making things difficult.
Yeah, voice control is still a work in progress for a lot of companies. I think. Um, I mean, only once in the Toyota that I was driving. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. Oh, I was trying to get a number for Jet's Pizza. It's like
Okay.
call Jet's Pizza. Call Jet's Pizza. Calling Brett. No, 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 no. Don't call Brett. Don't call Brett. Call Jet's Pizza.
Yeah.
So it's it's work in progress. But I want to pose the question, and I know I'm not alone on this because there are a lot of discussions. I mean, it's borderline cliche at this point. How much is too much for tech in cars? Even from a repair aspect, from a maintenance aspect, when some of these systems go bad. And I know we get that a lot with the driver assists.
Yeah.
Especially front end collisions. Okay, even a minor front end collision where you might just ordinarily replace the fascia, fenders, give it a quick paint job. Now you have to go through all of the various cameras that are up there. You have to make
Right.
sure the cameras are calibrated.
Yep.
That adds considerable expense. For the assist, I think the expense is worth it. We know that like the automatic emergency braking, we know that makes a difference for the positive.
Mhm.
Some of the other things, I mean, can you say there are needless driver assist? I mean, at this point, I don't know. The 360 camera, you would think that doesn't really make much sense, but it
I
kind of
mean,
does
if
when you get used
it
to it.
can in quite a few situations, either in tight parking lots for some people,
Mhm.
or if you're towing, on a lot of the pickup trucks, it gives you kind of a bird's eye view of where the
Yeah,
trailer is. Like, there are situations where a 360-degree camera system is nice.
right.
It,
But I mean, do you need massaging seats in all of the seats of your
but that's
pickup
not
truck?
safety tech.
No, no.
We were just talking about driver assist tech, and
Right, right. No,
massaging seats are not a
I'm talking
driver
about too
skill.
much tech in general here. I
Okay.
guess that to sum it up, I'll say it like this. I'm feeling like automakers want cars to be like your mobile headquarters,
Yes.
where they're not. They're the car that you drive to your headquarters, or you drive to work and then you drive home.
Hmm.
I don't think they need to be more than that. I think if you keep plugging things in, it just becomes more of a distraction. It becomes more of a hazard. And this is just off the cuff. I don't have any research to back it up, but my stance is we need to start dialing it back. If for no other reason, let's get cars lighter. Lighter cars are better.
Okay. No, I mean, that's absolutely true. I didn't mean it to come out that way, but I don't know that you're going to get your wish in terms of getting less tech and lighter cars, at least anytime too soon. Um, but hey, there's still a lot of Miatas out there for sale. So
There are, and after driving that RF, damn it,
you liked it?
it's a good car.
Cool.
It's a good
So
car.
I
It
think
surprised
that's
me.
going to be our show for tonight. I think the goal, fingers crossed, we're going to try to do first week of every month. We will try to do an episode. That's, I think, kind of the goal. Next one, again, I'd love to have a live chat again. gonna have to figure that out. Keep an eye on us. So we've been most active on Instagram and Threads, largely because I don't know. Do people want to talk to us on Facebook? If you do, let us know. And then Twitter/X. I don't like Elon. I just don't. He seems like a bad person to me.
I mean, I
does.
dropped my X account. I mean, I had a Twitter account since 20.
I have one.
I think I opened that up in like 2008, 2009, somewhere, and I finally canned it. It's just like, no, it's all propaganda, and I don't need.
And we can't say
any more propaganda in my
Facebook, I guess, since they own Instagram and Threads. So it's all
but Facebook is where you talk to your families.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, Instagram and Threads is mostly where you'll find us. Rambling about cars on both of those platforms.
Jump into the comments, talk to us about going live, and we'll give you updates as to when and where and how you can participate.
Yep. All right, folks. Thank you so much. And we will talk to you next month, and keep an eye on the socials because we'll be there.
All right. We'll see everybody. Bye-bye.